Anyways, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man sitting in the pound seat for Brave, so we really appreciate you taking out some time to chat with us today. I'm trying to get it done for some time, so I'm very excited to have a chat with you.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I just want to start. Obviously, you guys have come off. Firstly, congratulations on the 50th event. It's always a nice milestone. It was quite chaotic. You had what is it, like 4 events in 4 weeks, 40 fights, people from all over the world flying into Bahrain.
Right.
Spectacular event, outdoor event. Just what's the mood like at Brave at the moment after such a crazy time?
No, it's amazing. I mean, uh, the whole idea was to get the events done, get the fighters to fight. I mean, they have to fight. So we expected 2021 to be better than 2020, right? I mean, that was the whole idea. But 2021 came in and nothing has really changed. And I think some situations have actually got worse. So we didn't know if we could really do the events as, like we did in 2020 because things were getting much more serious, a new variant and everything else. So in Bahrain, we have a very strong COVID policy. So we were not allowed to do the event indoors, and that we had to do the event still. So we decided to do the events outdoor, and it was the first time Brave is ever doing an event outdoor. So we didn't know how it's going to be. It was a surprise for us as well how well it went. But really, the team worked really hard. Our policies were really strong, and the best place for we always knew that the best place when we are always stuck when it comes to events is to do an event in Bahrain. We could get the guys to fly in from any country, and we could go through the COVID policy and make sure that everybody's safe. So to pull off uh, uh, weeks, it was amazing, man. I mean, the guys are excited, the team is excited, the fighters really know that Brave Combat Federation is here to stay, and we are consistent, and we're not here to just be another promotion, but to make sure that we want to bring that change. And this is I think an example to show that we're able to do that.
Fantastic, man. And just from our side, I know we spoke about it on the podcast, the events themselves, obviously the cards were great, but the arena, it had like this very almost like a Pride-esque kind of feel, but not at the same time, these dramatic walkouts. It was exciting, man. It was really, really great. So we commend you on that. It was a great fun to watch. Just
Thank you.
with the end of the 50th event, if I may, just in retrospect, looking back, if you could
Sure.
just give us a brief story on the origins of Brave, on how this all came about, and what the journey's kind of been all the way to 50. Obviously, we'd like to say it was just smooth sailing, but I'm sure there were some hiccups along the way.
Sure.
Just give us a brief history on the organization itself.
So Alistair, this was a very simple mentality we had, and the idea was we're all MMA lovers. We love the sport of mixed martial art. We're passionate about the sport, and that was the only reason why Brave was born. Uh, if you look at the history of where we come from, the mother company of Brave itself, which is called KHK Sports, we're involved in esports to football to everything that's there. Of course, our founder, His Highness Sheikh Khalid, he's the president of the Bahrain Olympic Committee, deputy president for the Supreme Council of Youth and Sport. So if you look at where we come from, we're involved in every other sport. And mixed martial art, when you look from that perspective, from the sporting perspective, mixed martial art is really small compared to the rest of the sport, as an industry, I mean. And when we look into the industry, we see there's a lot of holes. I mean, definitely in the past 30 years, we have come a long way. From where it started in 1993 all the way to today, mixed martial art has grown a lot. It has there are promotions that's become a billion-dollar company, so that's great. But when you look at the sport as an industry and forget about the brands, you realize that okay, we got 7,000 promotions, one is successful, 6,999 are failed models. So as an investor, you and me, if I come to you and I tell you, Al, come on, let's invest in sports business, and you'd be like, which sports? And I say mixed martial art, and your financial team is going to come and ask me, okay, how successful is the model? And I say, you know what, 0.001% is successful. And either you slap me or there's something not going to be good if I put that proposal in front of you. So what are we going to change? I mean, definitely thank you for bringing all this sport to this position, what UFC has done to bring it to where it is today. And we thank them really for taking the sport that we love to where it is today. But that's not enough. We got to change. We got to bring mixed martial art from an event business to a sports business. And if we don't, we will die like boxing in the next 10 years, where we'll be relying on some guys to come, some fighters to come and save us, while fighters are looking for us to save them, the sports to save them. And that's the problem, right? If you look at the South African continent, that's the same idea. The fighters are looking for somebody to come and save them, just like everywhere in the world. But we, as promotions and brands, we are looking for Shakiras and Beyonces to come and save us. And that's the problem, you know? So I always say that if you have Conor fighting Khabib, or you have Floyd fighting some YouTube guy, or Shakira fighting Beyonce, we're in the same business. It's called the event business. We sell tickets, we sell sponsorships, and that's where we are in. So my question is, when can we see a day that we could have Lionel Messi, the football Argentinian Barcelona star, Lionel Messi, in mixed martial art, where he doesn't speak English. I don't hear his interviews because I don't speak his language, but we still see him for the talent and consider him as the best in the world, regardless of race, color, marketability, or looks even. And that is where we want mixed martial art to reach. You and I know that mixed martial art has globalized a lot, more than any other sport in the world. But still, it is an American sport. It's an English-speaking sport. And that is what we are all trying to be. We are forced, as an international mixed martial art lovers, forced to absorb that into our world. And we can't do that. Our cultures are different. Our mentality is different. So if our guys, our fighters from Africa, from Middle East, from Asia, from South America, if these athletes cannot be English speaking, cannot have the American mentality of marketability or trash talking, then they're not going to be superstars. That is what the sport today delivers. And it's not the fault of the sport. It is in the event business, not in the sports business. So where we come from, Al, we understand sports business because of everything you see about, we have bought biggest events into the countries. We have invested into sports media properties around the world. We are into the regulatory body, whether it's FIFA or to Olympics level. We know the regulatory body. So we are into every part of the sport that exists, which is called the sports economy and the sports values that a nation has to receive. And mixed martial art is not there. Mixed martial art, I would say, is in the event business, comparing to concerts, comparing to everything else. Of course, the mixed martial art as an art is a sport, but the business and the industry it is in the event business. So this is exactly the simple reason why Brave was born. His Highness Sheikh Khalid wanted simply to change the industry from an event business to a sports business. How do we do that? We did travel around the world. We didn't want to take all this weight on our shoulders, definitely not. But we traveled around the world. We spoke to all the top promotions in the world, in different continents. We sat with them, we spoke to them. And funny because today when why did we speak, it was very obvious that what reply we would get, that everybody was worried about the brands. Our brand is X amount, we want to exit at Y amount. Simple as that. And they're not wrong. I mean, that's what they invested for. So we understand that. So we finally realized that nobody's going to take care of the future of the sport today. They're all going to be taking care of the brand today, and rightfully so. They're all businessmen. It's time for somebody to take up that role and look after the sport. So that's why Brave started in 2016, September 23rd, and that was a mentality. And that's why we call it Brave Combat Federation, because somebody had to be brave enough to go and take this sports on their shoulder and make sure that we're going to lose money. We're going to do things that doesn't make sense. We're going to go to countries where nobody has gone to, and everybody's going to think we're stupid, or people are going to think they have too much money to burn. But whatever their mentality, it doesn't matter. We got to be brave enough to make sure that in the end, there's going to be a day when Nokia industry is going to change, and we're going to have Apple come in and take over the whole world in a blink of an eye. And that's what we say today. The industry in mixed martial art is the Nokia world, and Brave Combat Federation is the Apple, and you'll see it happening when you wake up one day and see that all of us are on these mobile called smartphones, and that's the change that's going to happen. And it's not because of competition. You can't compete. If you're going to compete, I would rather invest in Miss Universe brand and take the license of that if I want to compete with event business. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I'm not competing at all. We're trying to bring in a new system, which is the most famous system in the world, which is called the franchise model, where NBA, NFL, football, cricket, all the sports are in, where they have regulation, where they have security for the investors, where private sectors come on board, where every part of the sport in the world is linked under one umbrella. And that's a system, but that's too big for people to think, because we are in this little MMA bubble that we have no experience of sports at all, because every one of us who are in the MMA industry are MMA fans, not experts. So
Sure.
you'll never see serious experts in this industry. We need to bring that expertise onto the board, and we need to change the sport. And that's where Brave was formed. And you will see, when you look at Brave from that perspective, you will see the difference. Why did we travel to 21 countries? Why did we go to 5 continents? Why did we not look at Middle East as our market and take over it and enjoy it? Instead of that, we went around the world. We gave opportunities to athletes around the world. We went and brought private sectors on board, government relations on board, empowered the federations in all the countries, including the International Federation. Why was all this done? Because we are looking at changing the sport of mixed martial art. And believe me, Al, Brave as a company, as an organization alone cannot do it. We as His Highness Sheikh Khalid or myself cannot do it. No nation alone can control a sport, because then that sport would be so small. The sports is always bigger than everything else. So if you want to develop a sport, reform a sport, and bring change to a sport, you have to bring every part of the sport together and unite them under one umbrella. And today we don't see unity in mixed martial art. We see everybody competing against each other. We see people are understanding the sport really well, and that's the change we want to bring. And 4 years we have been trying to do that, and it's really been successful for us. So that's the history of where we started. And 50th event, why did we celebrate 50th event? Is not because we reached 50 events. It's simply because the 50th event was interesting for us, because in this 50 events, what we've achieved in becoming the largest sports media property in the Middle East, taking over the largest market share in Asia. And this is not competition. This is just to say that if you thought helping or developing or reforming a sport was a bad idea, that's the best business model, my friend. This is thought that I would take my little country and try to make money out of that. And money was the focus. But our focus was to change the sport and reform the sport and give opportunity to the athletes around the world and bring it from an event business to sport business. Sounded stupid in the beginning because it didn't make any sense to a lot of people, but at 50th event, we saw that how financially we are successful, how in terms of market share we are successful, how dominating Brave has become today. And all that is because when you do the right thing, you can never go wrong.
Absolutely, man. There's a lot to digest in some great points. What I want to ask you, you talk about the sport of MMA as opposed to the entertainment and event side of things. You mentioned at the top there, the globalization of MMA has become this who can talk the most and who can sell the most tickets. And that's almost in some ways, that's kind of becoming like the UFC model. And then the rest of the world, Brave, One, Bellator's kind of in between, but it's more going back to martial arts, and there's more respect, and guys are kind of leaning back towards that. With that in mind, with the sport developing side, do you think, and I know you guys are quite involved with it, you work quite closely with IMAF, and you mentioned MMA as a sport. Do you think that the push and a global push for MMA to be recognized in the Olympics would be the road that we're all trying to push for to get the sport into the Olympics? We can all say, I mean, you guys can pat yourselves on the back as well, and all the organizations can pat themselves on the back to say, finally, we've made it to this MMA actually being a sport.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's a great achievement, right? To be in the Olympics, to be recognized by the IOC is a great achievement. But here's what I'm going to say. And this is going to be controversial maybe, but I don't know. But I'm just going to throw it out there, right? Because I come from the sports business. I understand the business so well. So I'm just giving my opinion of my knowledge that I've learned so much, is that you don't have to have anybody recognize you to become a sport. You don't need any organization to recognize you other than your system that can show if you're a sport or not, if you're in the sports business or not. Believe me, if you look at sports like cricket, I mean, it's big in South Africa too, right? Sure. So if you look at a sport like cricket, are they in Olympics? Are they recognized by the IOC? Are they an Olympic game? They're not, but they're the richest federation in the world. They are as successful as anybody else. So if you look at it that perspective, do cricket need Olympics? I would say no. You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
Do IOC needs cricket? Of course they would need cricket. But when you're blessed, Al, when you're blessed with a sport that is bigger than cricket, that's bigger than any other sport that's out there in terms of globalization, in terms of fan growth, why do you want to rest all your eggs in one basket and hope for somebody to recognize you? Great. I'm not saying that's not. Go for it. Go for it. Believe me, we're all struggling. We're all fighting for it. Yes, get recognized. but that is just one piece of making yourself a sport. The actual problem that you have to be looking into is to change your structure of your sport to making it into an actual sports business. If you're not in the sports business, yes, then you would always want somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, guess what, you're a sport, we recognize you, so you can go home and be happy about it. I don't like that, I don't like that. But I'm not saying I'm against that. Of course, I'm with it. That's what we are fighting for as well. And they have Brave Combat Federation 100% support. But I'm just saying that there is a bigger problem that we need to solve. And the bigger problem is to create a structure, a sports structure around mixed martial art, that it will not end up dying in the next 50 years. And our children will go and say, Dad, I want to be a fighter. And I say, you know what? Sure, go and train how to be a fighter, but I don't know how to put you, there's no system to put in. What a good fighter, we will start teaching you how to trash talk. We'll start making you look good. We'll go to a parlor and put some makeup on you and make sure that you're a good looking guy who can trash talk well. And then maybe we will give as much calls as we can to all the promotions and beg them. And if they like you, or if they like me, then they're going to take you. I mean, that is not sports. That is not the sports that we thought. And if that was a sport, then we would never have the first billionaire in sports like Cristiano Ronaldo, who came from nothing all the way to become a billionaire, because that was a system that took him there. And we want to create that system, Al. And I think that it's fair to look into being a part of Olympics, and amazing. We're 100% with that. That's a part of it, part of the fight we should be fighting. But that's one part of the fight. I think the bigger picture that we should be looking at is looking within ourselves, and let's fix ourselves. And then everything, we don't have to justify ourselves to anybody else, because we'll be a sport that's big enough, has the potential to be big enough that everybody else would want to recognize us for their recognition.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Africa and moving to South Africa. This is a very important topic for me. Your first event for Brave on the African continent, I think, was Brave 14 Morocco. How important was it to get a presence on the African continent for Brave?
One thing, when we were looking at Africa as a continent that we wanted to enter, and everybody was like, what's the big idea here, and I keep saying to everybody that I speak to, who has the, I wouldn't use the word, who has the guts to come in front of me and sit down and say Africa doesn't have sports talent? Whether it is Africans naturalized in other countries or African athletes themselves, that they have talent. I'm not talking about mixed martial art, I'm talking about any sport.
Sure.
Whether it's athletics, whether it's any sport that's out there, football, you see the quality of African athletes. And when you see that African athletes have the quality, in 2014, when we went, 2017 or 18, I think, it was 18 when we went to Morocco. And at that time, in 2017, when we said Africa is a big continent for us, and it's going to be a market, not financially, but in terms of being there, developing the talent, developing the infrastructure of mixed martial art in Africa, everybody thought that's a bad decision. And I said that there's no doubt that there's talent there. If you don't go there, that's a shame. That's you not recognizing the importance of top athletes that's going to be coming from Africa. And that was the whole idea. So for us to go into Morocco and have the patronage of the King of Morocco, King Mohammed VI, it was amazing for us to go there and show that, listen, mixed martial art can give a sports value back to a nation, 100%. And vice versa, African continent can deliver the top athletes, top quality fights, and there is a huge fan base there that is looking for this infrastructure to be built there, so they can go and make the most out of it. So yes, definitely going to Morocco was a big step to making sure that North Africa is going to be a big part of Brave. And I think why Morocco was so special was just because that we had the patronage of the king, and we made sure that this is not going to be something small. It's not going to be in some about. It's an event that the whole nation is going to be celebrating, and that is the right way to go into a continent.
Absolutely, and I'll ask the same reference to South Africa, because eventually you made your way down, and the South African market, obviously there was perhaps a slightly bigger infrastructure, a little bit a bigger talent pool, or active talent pool, I should say. What was the thinking behind saying, okay, we need to conquer South Africa? There is a promotion in place there, but this is our territory. We need to try and see what's happening.
I mean, Al, like I said, our goal was to unite the MMA community. I mean, we got to fight together. So our goal was to come together. You have a local promotion there, fine, great. We're happy because we want to work with them. You have local promotion, you have the National Federation, Continental Federation, and then you have us who's going to take whatever is happening at the national level and globalize it. And that's the idea what we want to do. But we will never understand the market as much as the people in the market understands. And we are humble about that. And we know that that's the situation. So we want your help. So that's why we get into the market and we try to work with everyone. That's what I told you, Al. Before we started Brave, we went around the world, spoke to every top promotions, regional promotions and national promotions. And we spoke to them to see we have an ability to bring the sports together. We're going to bring a sports model on the table, but we need your help who are in the market in your countries and in your regions to help us implement this, and we will globalize your ideas. So that was the idea in South Africa. We went there, we did speak to the everybody that's existing there. It wasn't the other way to go there and compete with anybody or take over a market. We went and spoke to all of them and said, let's work together. Of course, you know, it's always that thing that everybody has their agendas, and it's nobody's wrong. It's not that somebody said no to you means they're wrong. No, they have their business plans for 5 years, 10 years, and we understand that. But that doesn't stop us from fighting for that cause. And in the end of the day, nothing matters. The cause is the most important thing, and we fight for it till the end. So we had to go to South Africa. Like you said, yes, a bigger talent pool. It was exciting for us, but apart from all of that, personally as well, going to Sun City was amazing. I mean, it was it was really interesting, and we had a great time there. I think one of the best, the luckiest fighters, I would always say, was the fighters who fought in South Africa first event. You know, they must have had definitely a great time, but it was amazing for the fun side of it as well. But yes, going into South Africa, we made sure that we're going to do something long term. It's not going to be an event. We go there, do an event, and go back. But it's always to show the industry of mixed martial art that there's three things that's going to happen. One, we are going to be in the country building the infrastructure and creating a national project for the sport of mixed martial art, which we call as Gym to Glory, where you can be in the gym, have a system that you can become in the national team, train if you have the talent from gym to national team to competing internationally at the amateur level, smooth transfer into the professional level at the national level and become a national superstar, all the way to becoming a global star. So we want to create that system, and that's a system we're going to tell the people that we're going to do that by being in the country on ground. And that's why a lot of people, they say that we are global. You're not global, my friend. You know, you're not really global. You have global reach. Doesn't mean you're global. You know, it's like we say that mixed martial art is the fastest growing sport in the world. Stop there. Don't say mixed martial art is the fastest growing sport in the world. It is the fastest fan growth in the world, because the fastest growing sport, you will have to look at other terms in terms of how many promotions are being financially successful, how many of them, you know, there's so many factors to look into. So don't judge it completely. So for us, we say that we are truly global. We use the word truly global because we are on ground helping the development of the sport. That's one thing. Second thing is to take the athletes, make them go around the world and give them an opportunity to fight in countries where they've never fought before, not because we're giving them an international tour, but it's more about making sure, you know, it's more about how can I take an athlete from South Africa or Nigeria and make him become a superstar in another country. You look at guys like Gamzat Chimaev, started with one fight, and how can superstars in 6 fights when the biggest promotion in the world takes 9 years and still cannot create a superstar? That's the question you need to ask. Why is that going on? You know, and that's because they cannot adapt to the international culture, because our sport, going back to the same question, it's back at the same point. We are still in an American English-speaking industry. But when we can take a guy like Gamzat Chimaev to India, and you have 1.3 billion people going nuts about this guy, and we could give him fame there, believe me, this kid doesn't want anybody else. He has the whole India backing him. And that's the only country you need, because a sport like WWE rests their company's finance on a country like India, because I think they still believe that WWE is real. But in any case, that's a market for them, because that's a huge population. So when I can take an athlete from Africa and make him a superstar in Middle East, in Asia, in countries like India or Brazil, this is what you need. And how do you do that? That's why the fighters rest their hope on you. It's your responsibility to make them a superstar, not my responsibility to wait for a superstar to come and feed me money. Today, if you look at the combat sports, we're in the event business, they're all waiting for who's the guy who can sell tickets for me? Who's the guy who can market himself for me? That's the goal. And then they speak about it openly without shame, where they say that, oh, let him, he talks about he wants to fight this guy, let him show if he can sell that many pay-per-views. Shame on you. Shame on you as a promotion to say that you are the one who's looking after the sport for us. And we are relying ourselves on your hands to take our sport to the next level. That's sad. So I think going into South Africa, our event there, we showcase that we are going to be there. But of course, people are going to look and say, oh, when you lose money, you're not going to come back. But that's why and that's normal. And that's why we want to make sure we came back and we did an event in Durban in 2019. And then 2020 was pandemic. But believe me, 2021, we're going to come back again. Even though it's pandemic, we want to tell the people that, believe me, we're not here for the money. Our founder does not need that much money. But that's not what we're really looking for. We're looking to change the sport of mixed martial art, and believe us, we're going to be here, whether we get money from the country or not, whether we become financially successful in that country. We're not going to go back until we change the sport and build an infrastructure that is going to change the sport of mixed martial art.
I just want to raise one point there. South African people that are listening to this, you mentioned being truly global because you're actually on the ground. That is one part of it. But I think from my point of view, being on the ground is one part of it. If we take the World Cup that was here in 2010, for example, there was all this promise, the infrastructure and whatever, and FIFA came and left, and it's nothing changed. So
True.
I think in the beginning with Brave, there was a concern, the hangover when Brave leaves, like what'll happen. But then we saw, I mean, you guys have developed talent like in Nkosi Ndebele, and there's Chad Hanekom and Zwandile Hlongwe, Stephen Gonzalez, and JP Base was there for here and there. So you weren't here maybe, but our fighters were still competing. So we still had an invested interest in our athletes, which I think everyone started to take Brave from a South African perspective a little bit more serious, to say, well, look, they might not be here, but at least our athletes are competing on the international stage all over the world. Like you said, not on the international tour, obviously, but they're still getting
Yes.
this exposure, this development, and there's opportunities for them, if they so wish to choose, to grow from there, which I think was a massive stepping stone in the relationship between South African MMA and Brave. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be on the ground. Our athletes are still competing in Brave, which is exactly. A big one. And
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's the three parts I was talking about. One is to be there on ground and help build the infrastructure and be consistent about it. So every year we're going there. Of course, the pandemic year we couldn't, but we want to make sure that every year we're going to be in South Africa and do at least an event. And the second thing is to make sure that while we're not there, to take the athletes and make them compete internationally, not just giving them opportunities to fight itself, but to make sure that they are getting the benefit of taking a new fan base for themselves around the world. That's the key. And the last and final third part would be to create, when we say an infrastructure, we want to make sure that we want to collaborate with the amateur level, with the national federations, and bring them all together under one roof and build that ecosystem, which we are looking at 2022 to really be able to see that visibly. People are going to be actually seeing that system tangible.
Fantastic. On the point of South African MMA athletes and the relationship with Brave, devil's advocate question, if I can, just sentiment from fans locally. There was the JP Base incident, which was very unfortunate. Chad Hanekom was there involved. Stephen Gonzalez had an opponent who tested positive. All of these guys linked back to KHK. And I mean, from a South African side, we full disclosure, I don't really know what happened from there, but we didn't see too much consequence for those individuals. So the sentiment was, perhaps there's a bit of favoritism sitting in your guys' position with KHK. How would you respond to that sort of what would you say, perception?
100%. See, there's one thing I'd like to say is that when people look at Brave and they look at KHK, you have to understand that it's two completely different organizations. Definitely, it is supported and funded by the same system. That doesn't mean that if our football team does something wrong, it comes down to Brave. So we have Cordoba CF is a football club owned by the same owner. Our Bahrain Olympic Committee is under the same ownership, just like KHK MMA is. Sure, we are in the same sport. I get the point. We are in the same sport, and they are competing in Brave Combat Federation. There could be favoritism, and I totally understand that. But for us, we always look at the story A to Z. And if you can look at, for example, if that was an issue, Chad Hanekom would never fight in Bahrain uh, and come down to Bahrain if he felt like he's going to get beaten up or something is going to go wrong, so definitely. And in terms of people being punished or getting a consequence for that, we're not in the business of letting people know what consequences people had, and like I said, there are people, there are so many issues where the referees make mistakes, judges make mistakes, the committees, national federations make mistakes, and they give us letters that this fighter was having oil on his body, that fighter was having tiger balm on his body, that fighter was having something else. And all these complaints are there, 50 events around the world. We've seen so many things, so many complaints from fighters. And some of them feel Irish made the mistake. Some of them feel like it is, so there's a lot of issues going on. And we take all those complaints. And what we do is we deal with it internally. And we tell them that, listen, it's nobody's fault. Again, for me, we're here to change the system. Today, if I go to a federation and the federation feels like, okay, you know what, I need 3 referees of my federation, or you're not going to do events here. Or 3 judges, sorry, have to be from our federation, or we're not going to sanction you. What am I going to do? You know what? We're an event. This is the system which we are in. Bring your 3 judges. Please sanction me. I got to do an event. Sure. And then they bring the judges, and then their fighter is there. And is it fair to have judges from your country when your fighters are fighting? I don't know. I'm not judging that. I'm not saying that the judges are patriots and they're going to be biased because of the country. I'm not saying that. I'm not judging them, but I'm just saying that, is it fair? Maybe not. But the fighter is going to feel that, I lost the fight because the judges was favoring the other guy. So there are issues in the system than anything else. So when we go back to the issue with JP Bice and Chad Hanekom, I always say that, they should speak about it. Sure, definitely they came out and they did do some, I think it was tweets or something. But if you look at the history of Chad Hanekom, he's back with us, fighting with us in our event in Bahrain. If it was, the home of KHK MMA team, and they were there sitting, talking, chatting. I mean, why wasn't he scared about it? I mean, that's the thing. The fans should go to Chad Hanekom and say, what is the situation? And then you go back to saying that people who are, there was a guy who was tested positive. And then we look at it and say that, what, out of all the countries we've traveled, 60% allowed us to do test athletes. There are some countries which was not happy about it, but the 60% were happy to do testing, and we want to do that, and we want to create a strong regulatory body, and that's one of the biggest. I'm one of the biggest, let's say, advocate for that. That the problem with private sector not investing in mixed martial art is because we don't have the security and the regulation. I could take your money and run away, and nobody is there to look at, to say that your investment is safe. So I definitely is an advocate for the regulation under one umbrella. We need the FIFA to regulate the sport. We need the UAFAs, and we need the AFCONs, and we need the AFCs. Yes, for sure. And that's what I'm looking at. So we have to do internally, each country by country basis. And then when you have a federation looking at the benefit of their athletes and then says, you know what, you destroyed our promotion, and then I need to go and test you or something. There could be a lot of factors behind it. So sure, we get issues that are unbelievable because we are the only promotion that's traveling around the world. So for example, like you said, maybe a lot of guys in South Africa or in African continent think that we're competing with EFC maybe. And we're like, no, we're friends, I mean, there's no issues with EFC. We're good guys. I have him on my WhatsApp. We chat all the time. And we always talk to the guys before we go to the country because we want to unite the people. But that's not the mentality of the people, right?
Sure.
And then we go to some countries, they take it very personally. And then they're like, you know what? You guys are ruining some things, and we want to make sure that we want to do something wrong for you. So there's a lot of issues that goes on, and we're just dealing with step by step, Al. I mean, in the end of the day, I always say, bring it on, whatever you want to, whatever you think about it, because in the end of the day, the end product is the most important thing. So if you look at guys from South Africa, we have our good friend Jason from South Africa, who's here in Bahrain, staying with us. He can say what the relationship with him and KHK is. Just like fighters like Chad Hanekom, who was here, if we can, they need to talk to him and see how was his hospitality and how did he feel being in Bahrain this time, not just about winning, but outside of his fight, how did he feel? And that's the most important thing for me. If the fighters feel good, if the industry of mixed martial art is going to benefit, everything else I welcome. You know, it's a part of the package. We got to take it.
You mentioned Chad Hanekom, and this is the next emerging question. Is there was a lot of talk between him and Mzwandile Hlongwa. It's a 50-50 split from what I can see. Half the country is saying, why would you have two guys from the same countries competing in an international organization against each other? And the other half are saying, we really want to see that. What can you tell us about that fight? Is it something that Brave backs, having two guys from the same country fighting each other? Obviously, a small pool of fighters. And do you think we could see that fight happen?
You know, in the end of the day, I'm also a person, Brave Combat Federation. If you look at our system, we are not so much into matchmaking. We hate matchmaking because I think the matchmaking happens only in fixed arranged marriages. That's the only place I've heard of matchmaking. I haven't heard matchmaking in sports, you know. So, it's funny, right? So it's and I say, why are we into this business of matchmaking? What we need is to see the best of the best fighters. I mean, I know a lot of matchmaking when it comes to boxing. The rest of the sports don't have matchmaking. If I want to do matchmaking, I would always have Real Madrid play with any team that they can always win, right? That's my always choice because they're the most money making, they're the most famous, and my best players are in that team. So that's the catch. So for me, I say when you have the best fights in the roster, you scout. Scouting program is what sports need. So we have the best scouting program in the world, which is why you look at the biggest stars from any continent today, whether in UFC or anywhere else, you will see, oh, they came from Brave, you know. And why did they come from Brave? Because of the system that's actually working, going into their country, taking them abroad, giving them a fan base, making them a star, regardless of the marketability, and it's working. The system is really working. Is why you see them as a future stars in the big, so-called big promotions. But you know, but apart from that, when you look at when these two guys have to fight each other, there's one thing I always say is, you can't have sports without entertainment, and you can't have sports entertainment without sports. You know, you need to have both in it. You know, it is a combination of both, and that's why we enjoy it so much. And I mean, we like a little bit of entertainment all the time, right? So when we go to Philippines, we took Stefan Lohman to go there and fight in Philippines. Regardless, he has to fight there because that event was made for him to fight. His people need to see and enjoy him fighting there. After all those times he was outside fighting and defending his title against the best in his challenges environment. So for me, Chad, Zwandile, if they're going to fight each other, I don't know if the fight is going to happen. We're going to talk about the fight. There's going to be a ranking system that's going to be announced very shortly. So there's a lot of factors that's going to be looking. We're going to see if that fight is going to happen. But if that's going to happen, then it is going to happen. If that is something that we deserve to, we have to give, or the South African fans really want it to be. And they're like, you know what? If you guys are going to take these two guys around the world and make them compete against each other and fight it, you know, fight with the best in the world, when they come back, we want to see this. You know, we deserve to see this. Give us that show, then we will give that show. You know, and definitely that's going to be a part of it. But if there is a chance that Chad Hanekom is going to go and take his rematch against Ikram, and if that's really supposed to be the fight that's going to be there, then if he has to do that in front of his home crowd, then that's going to be the fight as well. So whatever is the fight that I think is going to be important for the development of the sport in South Africa and what people and the public wants, we're going to make that happen. But I've heard a lot of people even reaching out to me and saying that they want to see Chad and Zwandile fight. So what is your opinion? Would you want that fight to happen? Would you want to see them fight against top middleweights?
I'm on the 50-50 side, but I think before Chad's last fight, I think Mzwandile kind of laid down the gauntlet for him, saying, you know, beat Dom Shoba, who I just beat, and we can have a go. And then I was like, well, if everybody's sold, then I'm sold, and I want to see it. Yeah. I'd love to see it, but as a fan, I'd love to see the fight stylistically. But as a South African MMA fan, like you don't want South Africans to lose, really. Unfortunately, one of them has to lose there. So it's quite a hard one. But stylistically, as an MMA fan, I'd love to see the fight.
Let me rephrase that question. Would you like, if that fight is going to happen, would you rather see it outside of South Africa, or would you say bring it to South Africa?
Yeah, in South Africa, 100%. That would be a massive headliner. I think it would get people very excited. The last one for me, we're talking about a headline in South Africa. You've mentioned that there is still a plan for Brave to come back. what is the plan at the moment? Obviously, I think we know COVID makes things extremely difficult, extremely
Oh, yeah, sure.
expensive, and there's a lot of complications. So what is the plan for South Africa at the moment?
So we're looking at coming South Africa in the last quarter of 2021. That's the plan, hoping that things are going to change and things are going to be easing up a little bit more. The only thing we have to sit with the team and discuss is how is it going to be. The event is going to, if we can bring international athletes to compete in South Africa, is that possible? How easy is that to make that happen? And it's not just about bringing guys to South Africa, it's also guys going back and what it's going to look like back in their country.
Sure.
So if they're going to come to South Africa and stay there for 2 weeks, and we build a whole bubble in South Africa, and then they go back and have another 2 weeks, it's a month they're going to lose, and a lot of guys are not going to be able to fight. A lot of guys don't want to lose a month not being with their families. So there's a lot of factors to look into. But in the end of the day, I think the phase one would be definitely to look into and say that, can we make an event happen? If the event happens, then phase two is international or national. Even if we cannot get the international fighters, let's get the national guys go and fight against each other. I mean, at the end of the day, they need a fight. We need to showcase them internationally. I mean, the goal is not just for the South African fans to watch them. These athletes need to be showcased around the world. Every network around the world that we have, they need to watch these guys and say that we have talent here in South Africa and African continent. I mean, that's the whole idea, really, right? So we need to give that platform and get those guys fighting. So that's the priority. Number one is to make sure the event happens. If we can get international guys and give them a really good show, I'm happy for it. But if that's not possible, I don't mind making an event where we can give opportunity to the South African and African talents and get them seen around the world. Even that's possible as long as the event happens. I mean, that's making the event happen is a priority. So we're looking at doing an event, and I'm also not against the idea of doing back-to-back events, 2 to 3 events back-to-back. If we are coming there, let's do back-to-back events and make sure that we have more than one event and get as much guys the opportunity to fight. And that's going to be keeping all the guys on their toes and keeping them training. And I tell the guys, stay ready, stay prepared. I know it's COVID. A lot of guys can't even train. I don't know if the gyms are open there, but I know the tough things. But the good thing to see is I know the amateur tournament happens from April 9th to 11th. Yeah. So that's a good news that that national tryouts, I think it might be one of the first countries to actually put the national roll out the national tryouts in 2021. So that's a good news for us to know that the interest, the passion, the will to push is there. So it gives us a little more comfort that we got the backing of the country's interest. So we're going to come there and give all we have to make that event happen. So definitely the events are going to happen. But what I'm also looking at is to roll out a long-term plan in South Africa in 2021. And of course, like I said, in 2022, it'll become tangible and visible to the people as well. And that's to create a system where we can bring the private sectors on board, the government sectors get the value of the mixed martial art industry, and make sure that talents have the highest opportunity throughout the year. And we're going to collaborate with the National Federation to make that happen. Also link with the International Federation and Brave around the world, and we're going to create a new model, a new system into African continent. So we're going to roll. That's what we're going to be busy on. Of course, the events are going to happen, but in 2022, you'll see that visible, and you will see a structure being created. And again, like I said, we hope that 2021 is not going to be like 2020. So we don't know what it looks like, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to see that and see the big change. And people are going to look and say that, yeah, we should have looked into Africa. We should have looked into South Africa. We made a mistake. And for me, it's always good to say, I said so,
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Like I said, that's a great bit of detail we really wanted to hear. We look forward to Brave's next steps, and we look forward to having you back here, man. It's exciting to hear the prospects, and I'm sure the fighters will be galvanized to hear that Brave is still around. Don't panic, and that you will be back. And we appreciate your time and your effort into the continent.
Thank you, Al. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you, man, and have a good day further.
You too. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.